Hi, welcome to Real Film Snobs. I'm Brian Michael.
And I'm Angela Yeager. You saw a clip at the top of the show for our first movie this week, which is Suburbicon. And the movie is about a home invasion that rattles a quiet family's home, while the appearance of new neighbors causes riots and chaos in the neighborhood. Film stars Matt Damon and Julianne Moore. And this is directed by George Clooney. Now, the screenplay was written by the Coen brothers. And it very much feels like a Coen brothers in terms of the tone, in terms of their black comedies that they've done.
Yes.
But it also says there's an and after the screenplay. Grant Heslov and George Clooney.
And, yes.
Grant Heslov is George Clooney's producing and writing partner. And I would be really curious. I couldn't stop thinking about it while we were watching this movie. What would this movie be like if the Coen brothers had just written and directed it? Which shows I wasn't really super engaged with the movie. You know, this is what I would call an admirable defeat of a movie. I would say that it's interesting. It held my attention for quite a bit, but it's kind of a hot mess. There's a lot going on here. There's a whole this racial element with the next door neighbors moving on, and then everyone gets up in arms and starts rioting. Yeah. Which seems totally separate from this whole gangster plot on the side, which also seems a little separate from the affair, the plan Matt Damon has that he's trying to do, and then he turns out to be maybe not such a great father. And then his son's viewpoint, which is brought into the movie. Mm-hmm. And it's all kind of a big jumble.
Well, this was a script that they had written in the 80s, and George Clooney was actually attached to it at that time, and it never got made, and so he decided he had a movie coming up that he wanted to direct and said, hey, what about that script that you guys had? Excuse me. And so that's where this came about, and then they added on, I believe they added on the exterior stuff, not just the macabre story that with Matt Damon that we see figured in here. I'm going to cough.
Well, I think it was interesting that, I don't know. It felt like kind of like 2 or 3 movies kind of smashed into one. There was and I also kept thinking as I was watching it, I feel like I've seen this movie before, kind of the idyllic suburb and, there's this seedy underbelly underneath. And I just feel like I've seen that quite a bit in, multiple movies. And so there was nothing that felt particularly fresh here.
It actually reminded me a little bit of Edward Scissorhands. It was a nice suburban area. But what they were what they were kind of doing was, here comes in this family who moves in, they're black. And the neighborhood literally comes to a standstill at one point in time. And they all freak out and they start haranguing and harassing these people. And while this is going on, their neighborhood is going to shambles because because they have moved in. And meanwhile, all the shady things are happening behind the closed doors in the Matt Damon household. I really liked that idea, but a few times, I wanted to know what was going on in this other household because I thought it was a little more interesting. If they shortened the film a little bit, because it has a slow pacing, which is fine, but shorten it just a little bit, and then extended by having maybe something else going on in the neighborhood, so you kind of had a better idea to show, here's this suburbia that's supposed to be beautiful and it's wonderful, and here's this, what everyone is considered an eyesore, but there's actually some devious things that are happening in his household. And I enjoyed that. It is a little slow. I couldn't help it. It was a little bit of a leaner because I kind of kept leaning, going, come on, let's get it going. And once it did, I thought, okay, so there's a home invasion, and then you find out it's not really a home invasion. And I like that. Now, Julianne Moore was recently in that Kingsman movie that we didn't like.
I've already tried to forget.
And I did like her in that, but it was such a waste. Here we actually really get to see her. She played twins, and it was like, we get double Julianne Moore, so there's nothing wrong with that. And I always enjoy Matt Damon. So I didn't like that enough. I can recommend this movie. Very light recommendation because I think it's totally worth seeing. And I wouldn't, if you saw it and you didn't really like it, but I think it's for those who are curious enough, have enjoyed George Clooney's movies, though I didn't like Leathernecks that much, but I always liked the statements that he's trying to make. He's actually trying to make something with a point and with a purpose, and I did enjoy that. It didn't feel forced.
See, it felt a little ham-fisted to me. The message with the black family next door felt forced, and you're saying that was the part that was added in, that wasn't in the original Coen Brothers. I could see that being the case because it feels a little wedged in there, and unless there was more around that, it just seems sort of weird with this whole other gangster plot, and then you have Oscar Isaac, this terrific
I was about to say,
actor.
He comes in, his scenes sing.
He's
scenes.
Amazing, but he's just only in it for 10 minutes, and I don't know why this guy can't get bigger roles. I don't know. I just feel like he's in it too little. I wished he was in it more. I didn't really think Matt Damon was super
he needs
effective.
a big blockbuster type movie to put him to the foreground. What would that be? Would it be a Star Wars movie? Yeah, he'll come around. Trust me, he'll get his starring roles very soon. Oscar Isaac, don't worry about Oscar Isaac.
Julianne
He's
Moore
fine.
is very good in this, but I thought Matt Damon maybe wasn't perfectly cast. I had a hard time believing him to be as kind of awful as he's supposed to be, and I felt like maybe a different kind of actor could have played that a little bit more
when he's eating the
interestingly.
sandwich. See, now there was enough that I was able to enjoy it as it went along, and so I
But
enjoyed
the
her
sandwich
at
thing's
first.
in the trailer.
I enjoyed him. The sandwich part is fantastic. Oscar Isaac is really good. I like the next door neighbor. So it kind of, it went along just fine. I don't know how long the movie was. It felt about 2.5 hours long. I know it wasn't that long.
It was about two, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it could be
The pacing
maybe
was a little
quicker pacing.
off, yeah.
But it did have great dialogue.
It's hard to pull off black comedy. It's the hardest genre to pull off, and even the Coen brothers have not always been very successful.
Sure,
I would say
sure.
their comedies are like half and half for me. Some of them are really good, and some of them, ooh. So, I mean, I admire Clooney for trying. I think it's an admirable failure. I'm giving it 2.5. It was right on the edge for me, but I just can't recommend it
See,
ultimately.
I can give that 3 because I think it was enjoyable enough. It's a great looking film. It's got some fantastic dialogue. I enjoyed the performances enough. Just as a whole film, it just didn't. Yeah, it felt like. It just kind of felt like a rehearsal, and they needed to kind of to tighten it up a
Yeah,
little
it just
bit
didn't.
there,
Yeah,
kind
it
of
just
bring
felt
that
like a
in
little
there.
bit like a mess. And I always admire someone. I have to give this for Clooney. He's made several films that haven't done so well.
Yeah.
But he's trying at least to do some original things, bring some original stories.
Yep.
He's not just cashing in and doing another
Ocean's
comic book
14.
movie or whatever. Yeah, or a sequel to something that he could do easily. Like you said, he's trying to pick up interesting themes. This one has obviously civil rights and race relations and so I mean it just is sort of it's a failure, but I always would admire someone who takes a gamble and tries to do something hard than someone who just takes an easy way out. So
You gotta love Julianne Moore with a knife theoretically hidden behind her back.
well, and
trying
she's
to coach
so
somebody
sweet,
out.
and she's
Come
sort of
on,
she ends up being a little bit more wicked than he does.
She's
So,
excellent.
yeah.
Oh, I absolutely loved it. Yeah, as soon as I realized she was playing twins, I thought, oh man, we're getting double. This is great. You
Although her
can't-
twin isn't, in the movie a huge amount. So
but still.
okay.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the clip for our next show, which is the Meyerowitz Stories. So that clip you saw was for the Meyerowitz Stories. This is the new movie from Noah Baumbach. I always mess up his name. Who also did Greenberg, that also starred Ben Stiller, as well as Squid and the Whale, which I believe was in your top 10, and Francis Ha.
Not in my top
Yeah,
10.
ooh, which gets an eye roll from Angela.
Boy, I hate that movie.
We don't do thumbs up, we don't do thumbs down, we just do eye rolls from time to time, as well as give our star
I
ratings.
feel like instead of thumbs up, thumbs down, like Siskel and Ebert did, we could do the eye roll.
The eye roll.
I don't know what would be a positive though. Just
An eyeball raise? I don't know.
I don't. Go
So
ahead. Sorry.
this was, this tells the story of a family. Of course, the patriarch would be Dustin Hoffman, who's a sculptist. I guess he's an artist, and he has 2 sons. One played by Ben Stiller, the other one by Adam Sandler. Wait. And of course, he has a daughter as well, and from 2 different marriages. And he's becoming ill. The family kind of comes in together, and there's some tension, of course. And it's a funny movie. Has some deeper moments. Ben Stiller isn't in it quite enough. It's kind of an Adam Sandler movie, really. It's available for streaming, and they really push it's this ensemble, but it's mainly really Adam Sandler, and it's the good Adam Sandler. This one he actually doesn't look good, or doesn't look very put together. He looks rather schluppy. He may not have his life all together in this movie. He's actually he does have anger, but it's not that stupid comedy Happy Gilmore anger that annoys me so much. He's actually very good in this film, and when Ben Stiller comes in, I really enjoy it. It's a good movie. It had some great moments in there, and so fortunately we're not going to be able to see it on the big screen because it went directly to streaming to Netflix. But I enjoyed the film, and I'm dying to know exactly what you thought of it.
Well, it's interesting. But
I
Noah
know you're a bigger
Baumbach.
fan of him than
Well, I don't know if I am. The thing about Noah Baumbach is his first film, Squid and the Whale, is a great film. But
Yes.
everything he's made since then has been sort of a 3-star film, with the exception of Francis Ha, which I couldn't stay. But Mistress America was like 3 stars. Greenberg, it's like 3 stars. And this film, I think, is like 3 stars. Again, this is sort of a 3-star film to me. I liked it, but there were certain elements that bothered me. Number one, and I know you're not going to agree because I know you don't think it's a great film, which it is, the Royal Tenenbaums did this exact story better years ago.
Oh, I don't remember that movie.
Two brothers, and Ben
Blurred
Stiller
right
played
in.
one of them, and a sister played by Gwyneth Paltrow, and
Yeah.
they kind of living under the shadow of their patriarch father, played by Gene Hackman. And it's just, I know there were so many echoes of it because it was the New York thing and the father
Yeah.
thing and exact same sibling relationships, two brothers, one sister. And that film is so much more creative and interesting and does so much more with
They're
that
trying
theme.
to get the fish that killed the guy. Is that the one?
I think you're talking about Life Aquatic.
Oh,
maybe.
those movies, it's just one big.
Okay, well, Royal
movie.
Tenenbaums, I think one of these days you need to rewatch it because it is a classic, modern classic, and you will see the error of your ways someday. I do think Adam Sandler is really good in this. It always makes you, when you see him actually act, which he's only done a couple times, Punch
So
Drunk Love
good.
is one of them, he can do it. It makes you wonder why he
good.
doesn't do it more.
Yeah.
I mean, I know why, because this movie will probably make half of what Jack and Jill made or whatever the last thing he did was. I mean, I didn't see Jack and Jill, but,
I saw
you know.
some of it on cable when I flipped through channels, and I watched like 2 minutes of it, and it was the most excruciating, painful. I would rather have had a colonoscopy, a 10-hour one, than 5 minutes of that movie. It is truly
That bad.
terrible.
Well, I
It's
mean, even just seeing the
terrible.
trailer when we saw he was playing drag, I was like, oh no, that's just going to
it's
be
so bad.
terrible.
It's so embarrassing.
But you know, his comedies make money. But I mean, in this film, he's comedic, but he's also got these poignant scenes. He's got this wonderful relationship with his teenage daughter, who's going off to
Yeah.
college, and they have one of my
It's kinda
favorite
breaking the chain.
scenes where they're playing piano together, and they're very close. They're the opposite of the
Yes.
way he is with his father. With
Correct.
his father, it's all tension, but he and his daughter have almost a friendship. And I really like that because they get to kind of that generational, the
Yeah.
boomers versus the Gen X's, and the Gen Xers want to be friends with their kids. And I know a lot of people that are like that, so I felt like that hit home. And Ben Stiller is, again, playing kind of the uptight career guy, and he gets kind of pigeonholed
I
in
don't get to
these.
see him do that too many times. Usually he's the goofy guy that has a hard time struggling to get everything together. That's how I always seem to see him as. So it's kind of nice seeing
I always
him
think of
play
him like
fitness.
Reality Bites, which is going way back, but he was like the corporate guy against Ethan
Oh my
Hawke's like
God.
slacker. Anyway.
That was like 96.
But you know who's really underutilized? There's actually a third sibling in the movie, and you wouldn't know that from the poster because Netflix shows a poster and it's just Ben
Yeah,
Stiller. But
that's right.
Elizabeth Marvel
Thank you.
plays their
Yeah.
sister, their long-suffering sister Jean, and she has one great scene in this film.
Well, I
she
think
only
she
gets
steals every scene she's
well,
in.
she is pretty much, but she's not in it very much.
fantastic.
But there's one really great scene where she runs out to the woods and
Yes.
she has this minute where she decides to tell them something, but the brothers make it about them. Ultimately, that's what they end up doing. She decides to divulge something horrible that happened to her as a child that's related to their father, and then they make it about them again. And I just wanted more of her in the movie. Even though, as you said, it was mostly Adam Sandler, there's not enough Ben Stiller. I also felt like there wasn't enough of Jean, that character. I just thought she was really interesting. I want to know more about her. And I love when they finally ask her, you know, why are you doing this for Dad? He was such a horrible father to you. And she's like, well, because I'm a decent person. And that's what decent people do. And they just kind of it just stops them in their tracks. Because
Yeah.
the brothers, you know, are spending all this time obsessing about doing this stuff with their father because they're trying to, and she's just very simple about it, and I liked that. So.
What they really got right in this film, I really enjoyed, was when their father goes to the hospital and they immediately are mad because the nurses are changing, the doctors are changing, the doctor's putting him in a medical induced coma and then going on vacation, which I know is not funny, but it's really funny. If you've ever been in the hospital for a long stay with one of your parents or anyone who is sick and no one can give you a straight answer because the shifts have changed, it gets very, very frustrating. And so
That
they're
was
like,
very
everyone's writing it
realistic.
down, and boy, everyone's writing everything
Right.
down, and I've been in that situation, and it played out really well. Yeah, you know, it's a good movie. It's definitely one you can easily catch, especially if you have the streaming services. And
I thought there were some
recommend
good
it. Yeah.
performances. I like
I enjoyed it.
Dustin Hoffman's very good. He's doing the Dustin Hoffman thing. This isn't a stretch for him.
Thompson.
I thought Emma Thompson was a little
I
miscast. She
don't
was
know why
actually
didn't-
distracting.
She could have just been in an English accent and been fine. Her
Yeah,
American
but
accent's
she's doing
good,
like
but
this
it's weird.
hippie dippy character.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just kept feeling like I feel like another actress could have done that better than Emma Thompson. Not that Emma Thompson couldn't do anything, but she just, as a hippie dippy American, I don't know. It just seemed I kept expecting her to go out into Sense and Sensibility and do like some other totally different thing. It was a little, and the character was a little over the top, I think. But yeah, I can recommend. I'm recommending it 3 stars. What are you giving it? 3 stars
sounds all
also.
right.
Yeah.
Sure.
God, this fall has been like 3 stars. I don't know. It just feels like I'm waiting. You know, it's supposed to be Oscar.
It's supposed to be
Like,
time.
yeah, it's
coming
almost
up.
it's November, and it's like, well
Oscar-
where's the
Hollywood's
movies
busy right
that
now.
are? Yeah, well, they made these movies a while ago before all of that. So
I can make a joke. Come on. Okay, so we'll move on to our next segment, which is his distinguished classics. Let's not put together. And this week we're reviewing The Golden Coach. Have you heard of it? No. This is by Jean Renoir, one of the great filmmakers, and I don't know what year it was made, but anyway, it's traveling performers who go from town to town, and they have an actress who's a part of this troupe. And they come to a town, and suddenly she has, was it 2 or 3 different men who are in court? She has 3 different men courting her at the same time.
Problems, you know.
And so she's got to deal with those. And you know what I really enjoyed about this film is that it really goes in. You really feel the time and the place. It really comes in here with all of the different characters that it's juggling, and it's juggling a lot of characters. We're almost juggling like a little town with a traveling circus and all these different people that come in there. And you've got the 3 guys that you know. One is actually the man who's in charge, who's kind of a well, I wouldn't say he was royalty, but he's kind of bought his position in there. Another one's a soldier, and another one is the...
Well, he's sort of with the actors, and he ends up being a soldier. Ends up being
one of the soldiers. So, so you've got all these different guys up there. I really
bullfighter.
enjoyed...
Did you remember
the bullfighter? That's who it was, the bullfighter. And so this is Anna Magnan?
Magnana. Yeah, and she is...
She's fantastic. She looks like... she handles it like 3 guys. Okay, I'll make a decision.
Yeah.
Let me get around to it. That's fine. Yeah. Not a problem here.
There's a reason this actress was one of the favorites of the directors of the Italian New Wave. Visconti, Pasolini, they all, you know, she was in a great movie called Mama Roma by Pasolini. And here she is in a French movie, but it's not I mean, it's kind of a weird mishmash because they're doing English. It's English, French, Italian actors, a mishmash of them.
English.
Well, and they're all speaking English, you know, the universal language. No, just kidding. But she's very Italian still. I mean, she is just like she does not suffer fools wisely. I mean, she does not. These men are just making fools of themselves over her, and she is not a young woman in this movie. This is her, you know, in her, you know, middle-aged period, and she's still just alluring as all get out. So
like I said, she handles herself really well. It's a good-looking film. I really enjoyed the time and place in which they picked this.
Good old Criterion Collection.
It's a Criterion Collection. The Golden Coach, which comes into play because it was something that the monarch there had brought in for prestige, and not everyone's going to be able to use it because it's kind of his. Then he ends up giving it to her, and that's a huge scandal. And then the scandal gets really big, and I really, not to jump much to the ending, but I really enjoyed how that played into it, and how, you know, she was no fool, and I really enjoyed how smart she was as a character, even though she had, you know, had 3 men pulling at her heart. So I really enjoyed that part of it.
Do you think Renoir, though, I mean, out of all, you know, he's mentioned among the greatest.
Yep.
But there's not that many of his films I've seen that I feel like, this is one I need to own. It pulls at my heart. It's, you know, I mean, The Grand Illusion, and what was the one the River? Did you see that one though? They had it in India. Did we review that?
No, we reviewed that on the show.
We did, right?
We did.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
and I liked most of his films I've seen.
I love Rules of the Game and the Grand Illusion, because in film study class that was like, oh wow, okay, this is what this can do. Of course, Rules of the Game, I love that anyway. But the other ones, The River, we both liked. This one, I liked,
but I don't feel like, oh, I need to go out and own this, or this is what I want to watch over and over again.
And I've never seen actually where I really see a stamp of what, oh gosh, I know there's certain people are watching the show going, what? No.
Well, and I haven't seen, I mean, he's made a ton of movies that we haven't seen.
But I haven't, but you haven't seen like there wasn't a shot in this movie where I went, ooh, wow.
Right.
Not that it has to be.
It's not like Max Ophuls or something where you see it and you're immediately like, that's a Max Ophuls shot, or, you know, because there's some obscure directors out there that still have their stamp on it. And with Renoir, I guess the one thing I would say is that, like, this one felt a little, it could have been like a stage play.
Sure.
And some of his do kind of operate like that. Rules of the Game or Grand Illusion, like there's a house, there's a setting, and it's all sort of contained, you know. Yeah. So I guess that would be one mark of his that I could see.
But there was better fighting in this one than Rules of the Game. Rules of the Game I will still laugh because, boy, the French really couldn't stage.
There's a lot of bad slapping.
Oh, there's some bad ones. This one actually had some really good ones.
Well, it's Italians; they can fight.
While
we're ethnic stereotyping, the French can't fight, the Italians can. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But worth checking out if for no other reason than to see Anna Magnana. She's amazing. Magnana. I think I might be butchering it.
No, that's good because I had it written down wrong. I think I must spell it. So, no, I really enjoyed her performance. She really holds it all together and just holds the screen really well and kept the movie kind of, you know, going right along.
She is a movie star. That period.
She is absolutely fantastic. And you know, when you have she's in one room and with one of the guys, and another one comes in, and then the other one comes in. It could have easily been played for slapstick, and there is some fun with that, but it doesn't
Right.
kind of like fall and doesn't get too broad. It doesn't get too
Yeah.
dumb, and so I really enjoyed that. And it's been a while since we saw this. We saw this a while ago.
Yeah, several months ago.
Several months ago,
Yeah.
but it still holds fresh in my mind. So
That's good.
especially the Golden Coach. It was quite attractive.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
all in color. It's in color. So if you black and white scares you,
That's right.
some Wayne Wars
What was
films
the other
are
Coach movie we
black.
watched where there was money hidden in it? I watched that recently. Oh, it was Vera Cruz. Yeah, that's right, with Burt Lancaster and Jimmy Stewart. And they
I
had
didn't
the
see
money.
that.
No,
We're not
well,
reviewing
I
that
watched
for the
that.
show?
No, I watched it. I watch movies.
You watch a movie that's not for the show? When
It's
did
not
you
for
have
the
time
show.
to do
On
that?
occasion, I do that. And yeah, they smuggled money through the. Oh, I don't want to give it away. It's a really cool movie.
Okay.
We'll review it someday.
So that was your distinguished classic. So we'll move on to her fresh picks. This is where I put together a list of critically acclaimed films that have come out this year, as in 2017, that we didn't get to first time they were in the theater. And this week's pick is Beatriz at Dinner, starring Salma Hayek as a therapist and a healer who clashes with a greedy corporate mogul played by John Lithgow, and a very good performance as well, at a dinner party of some wealthy clients of Hayek's. And this film, I have to first of all mention that it was written by Mike White and directed by Miguel Arteta, and they've done several films together, including The Good Girl and Chuck and Buck, and they're kind of like indie classics.
Yeah, those guys.
And Miguel also directed Cedar Rapids, and he's done a bunch of, when you look at his thing on IMDb, he's directed a ton of really good, solid indie movies. I mean, he's very much stayed in that kind of like independent vein. But very solid movies. This one, I think they're trying, sort of like in Chuck and Buck and Good Girl, to push the envelope a little bit more. And this is another one, sort of like Suburbicon. I would say this is more of a failed but a noble experiment.
Yeah.
Salma Hayek is terrific in this. If there's no other reason to see this, it's just to see, you get so, this is a woman who is so gorgeous that she's been typecast and has, a thick accent. And because of those two combinations, she's been typecast by Hollywood often to play, Mexican prostitutes or strippers or, maids or whatever. And here she gets to play a real character where she comes in and she kind of goes head to head at this dinner party with John Lithgow. And there are some very good moments. This movie is billed as a comedy, though, and it's mostly something that makes you uncomfortable. It's not very funny.
Oh, the trailers looks really funny. It does a really good job. He comes in and she is stuck at the house because she's the masseuse of the lady of the house, and her car breaks down, and so she's very close with the family because she helped with their daughter when she was ill, and so they're like, oh no, just join us for dinner. Oh, come on, just join us for dinner. And so all these people come over, and they've had this big, huge business deal, and John Lithgow is very much a big businessman. There's a blowhard that does lots of bad things so far in the press, but nothing proven. And she starts to realize who he is, Salma Hayek's character, and so she actually confronts him.
Right.
And we're waiting for this to happen. And so when it does, it is very uncomfortable because she's a guest. You want to be polite, but this guy's this big blowhard, and Lithgow is so good in this. And he's like, no, let her say what she wants to say. No, go ahead, say it. He has no problem taking the criticism to his face because he just laughs it off and counts his money. And she does this and then is kind of, excused and pulled away. And then she comes back and does it again. And it gets a little bit worse. Then pretty soon they're like, you just need to step out of the party. And it gets very uncomfortable. So if you love that uncomfortableness, it does a great job. I kind of wish it had pushed a little bit further and made a little bit more of a point. I mean, there's no way that you're going to have the John Lithgow character be like, oh, I see the errors of my ways over this dinner, and I will stop what I'm doing.
Yeah, and it's a hard movie. Like, how do you resolve it? I didn't think the ending was very good, but I couldn't think of a way it would be better.
Well, I didn't like the way they ended with her character. I did not at all.
But even before that, the two false and,
But it was interesting to see also that, I mean, not to be, negative and say that there's nothing you can say because there's no words will come. Well, no words are going to do it. It's legal action or it's other action that would actually do something to make him listen where he'd be advisable.
Right.
But it was very cool, to sit there and have these conversations. It was the picture he passed around with where he had killed a lion, and she was very upset by that and scolded him, and he didn't have a problem. I did love that. Lithgow is so good in this movie, and I don't want to see the Dad's movie that's coming out this fall because of other people that are in the movie, but I really want to see it just because of him, because I love his performances and he always does such a great job.
Well, he's so good, yeah.
And he plays a completely different. He plays a buffoon in that film. But anyway, in this one, I really did enjoy that. I wish we'd had a little bit more of that tension because his character totally could have taken it because he would have snapped right back. and everyone else at the dinner table is, looking to him because he made this big deal. They're all making money because of him, so they have to suck up to him regardless if they agree with it or not. And
yeah, they kind of just laugh off. Like, some of them don't want to look at the photo, but they're all going along with it because they want to make money, and she's just like, no. And one of the things I read about this movie, they described it as like healers versus destroyers. It's very obvious her character is a healer. Her job is to bring life to things. His job is to destroy things, and that's sort of their roles and the way they're clashing. But I just felt like there could have been more of it. It's a very short film. It's only like 70 minutes or something. And I hate, it's sort of almost the opposite of Suburbicon where we felt dragged on. I felt like this could have had more meat to it. There could have been more to it. So, so I'm giving it 2.5 as well. Same as I gave Suburbicon. I can't quite get it to the 3-star. What is it
I would
for
recommend, on the basis that I would go again and recommend it.
You're going to give it 3 stars.
With a 3 because I think it's very interesting, even though it doesn't succeed in every level. I think it's interesting enough to start a conversation and to be able to see something like that. Or, what I always say, don't remake classics. Remake a movie that maybe didn't quite get it right. If they remade this movie in 10 years, maybe they could find the ending that would be satisfying.
Yeah, you could see it being like a great movie. It has, and the cast is there. I felt like the casting was good. Connie Britton is the mother. Chloe Sevigny is kind of the stuck-up, ingenue or whatever she was supposed to be. I mean, there was good casting there. Yeah. It was just needed a little bit more. So anyway.
But fun.
Yes. So we'll wrap up. Suburbicon, we split on. Brian can just barely recommend. I can't. The Meyerowitz Stories, we both recommend. The Golden Coach by Renoir, we recommend. And Beatriz at Dinner, Brian recommends a little bit more than me.
No standouts, though.
Yeah, but no standouts, no 4-star movies this week, so unfortunately. So as always, you can check out our website at realfilmsnobs.com. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on our Twitter. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can watch us here on CCTV in Salem, Scan TV in Silverton, or Corvallis Access Media. And as always, I'd like to thank our wonderful, hardworking crew and our wonderful sponsors for supporting us. We wish you a great day and great movies.